So welcome back everyone. There's no script for this one. It's actually quite impromptu. I've been sitting here working on something and well, in a conversation with a coworker here at the site, it kind of dawned on me that it really depends on where you look when it comes to benchmarks as to what you're going to see. Now, that's not to say that I'm going to sit here and tell you that one place will give you better numbers than the other. That's not what this is about. What I want to do is give you an idea, especially going into the review season with upcoming graphics cards from at least NVIDIA. AMD hasn't announced anything just yet other than we'll see Big Navi before the consoles launch, which we still don't have a hard date or a price on those either. But back to the topic at hand is frame rates and benchmarks. So the idea here is we benchmark these games at various resolutions with various hardware configurations to give you an idea of what type of performance that you're going to see in a game. Now, when you look at benchmarks for games like Assassin's Creed Odyssey, Far Cry 5, Forza Horizon 4, these games all have built-in benchmarks, and it's generally what most, there are some that don't, they use their own, but most reviewers will use these benchmarks for a couple of reasons. One, it makes life easier on us. It really does, no matter what you guys may think. And as long as it's representative of the game, it's at least a very consistent number. So when the games don't have built-in benchmarks or you use gameplay performance numbers, what you're going to find is that based on the outlet, based on the area that they benchmark, you're going to get different numbers. Now, the number itself isn't the end-all be-all. It is important in the sense that you want to know what kind of performance you're going to get with the settings and the area that they test in, but sometimes that can lend you to finding one outlet may get a very different number than the other. That doesn't make either one of them more right or more wrong than each other. It just shows that there are differences in testing areas and testing methodologies. Now, what I wanted to do, rather than use our site and my own numbers, I wanted to use someone else's to represent how this can show up and how you as a potential buyer of the graphics card, or you just want to see where yours stacks up against the new one. Some people like to see the new reviews to see how comfortable they are holding on to what they have rather than just running out and what they're going to get for spending the money. Not everybody needs to buy a new graphics card every time one launches. So what we've done here is I've taken 3 different benchmarks for the same game, same resolution, and it's going to show you that based on how they test, you're going to get very different numbers. So we're going to kick things off and we're looking at Metro Exodus across 3 different sites. So we've got Tom's Hardware, AnandTech, and Eurogamer. So at AnandTech, or we're going to start things off with Tom's Hardware. Tom's Hardware does Metro Exodus, and we're looking at the 2080 Super. That's just going to be our target. So we're looking at 2080 Super numbers so that we can compare them next to each other. So 2080 Super in their benchmark at DX12 medium settings at 4K yields an average frame rate of 54.9 FPS with a 99th percentile, 1% percentile numbers of 35.4 frames per second. Now you switch over to AnandTech. AnandTech uses the 2080 Super and they get an average of 39.8 at 4K Ultra settings. Move things over to Eurogamer, and Eurogamer is testing at 4K overall frame rates. Let's see if I can see exactly what they're doing. Not entirely clear on their numbers here, what settings they're using, and this is just, and you're seeing that at 4K they're getting an average of 62.9 with the lowest 5% at 44.5 and then 41.5 is the lowest 1% of frames. Point being, all of these numbers are different, but what you really want to look at is in relation to the other cards around it. So going back to Tom's Hardware, we see 54.9 FPS, the 2080 Ti does 65.5. Looking at Metro Exodus on AnandTech, and Ryan got a similar margin going up to the 2080 Ti. So the performance delta kind of stayed the same. The numbers may have changed, but the performance delta really didn't. Same thing over on Eurogamer. So what I'm getting at is if you're running a, let's say NVIDIA's next graphics card when it launches, let's say it runs 30% better in a particular game on, well, most sites are getting, let's say, and I'm throwing 30% out as an arbitrary number. We'll find out whenever those cards launch just how they perform. Focus more on the percentage rather than the number. The number is important. The number is very important. The frame rate is very important. Don't think I'm saying those numbers aren't important. But what I'm getting at is when you're comparing performance across multiple sites, as you should, if you're about to drop $500, $600, $700 on a new graphics card, you really want to make sure you're getting, you're putting your money in the best place. And you can take those numbers and against the current card that you have, and you can pretty much extrapolate the type of performance benefit you should expect. Now, that doesn't really work if you're buying a card and you don't have one right now. This really only works for upgraders. But if you're looking at buying one outright, you can kind of get in a baseline performance of expectations, and then based on which card you pick, expect it to be better or worse than that target. So I hope this kind of gives you guys a little bit of something to look forward to and bring some kind of sanity to the numbers, because what you're going to see is, again, Tom's Hardware got 55 FPS, but a non-tech only got 38 or 39.8. So they got 40, 55, 40. It's a big difference. But the reality is you see those percentage gains stay the same, which shows their testing methodology stays very consistent, and that's what you really want to look at. So you may find some outlets may look better, but it may be that they tested in an area of the game, because Metro Exodus is, I use this one specifically because there are no set benchmarks for Metro Exodus. The reviewer, the editor, just like myself, I use Metro Exodus in games. I have a set run that I make, and it's different than what they use. So my numbers are going to be different than theirs. The importance is understanding the growth potential or the percentage change from one set to another. I hope I haven't rambled on too far. I hope hopefully that at the end of the day, there's some useful information in here, and that you guys use this to make better buying decisions whenever you're shopping for a new graphics card. Now, I've got some work to get back to, and I'll catch you guys on the next one.